Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Kirsten Aiken. The Prime Minister has extended question time by almost 2 hours to avoid losing a vote on a royal commission into the disability sector. The federal opposition claims it's the latest example of the coalition losing control of the parliament. Our political reporter Matthew Doran joins us from Canberra now. Matthew, talk us through just what happened this afternoon.
Well, Kirsten, avid viewers of politics, and particularly here on the ABC News channel, would know that question time from the House of Representatives generally wraps up sometime after 3:10, normally off the back of what's colloquially called a Dixer, which is a question from a member of the government to a minister, allowing the government to spruik its own policy. We were all looking at our clocks this afternoon as question time was progressing and noted that it was running longer and longer, and it didn't end up finishing until Bill Shorten, the opposition leader, took to his feet to try and force it to finish, to bring on a vote about the creation of a disability royal commission. Now, this all kicked off earlier today in the Senate, where Jordan Steele-John, the Green senator from WA, pushed a motion, and it was successful, calling for the creation of a royal commission into alleged abuse within the disability sector, saying that the current inquiries that are ongoing, such as the Aged Care Royal Commission, didn't go far enough to look into abuse being suffered by people in specialised care. And that message was then going to make its way across this building, despite it only being a few hundred metres away, the two chambers being quite close together. It does take some time for those messages to move from one chamber to the other. And we saw a lot of discussion as to whether this could be another example of the coalition being surprised or being shown up in the lower house, because the Labor Party and the crossbench there were going to vote in favour of such an inquiry. So we saw question time roll on, and accusations from Labor that Scott Morrison and the government were just filibustering, trying to avoid that sort of vote coming up for further embarrassment. Scott Morrison instead turned it into a further attack on Labor, suggesting that they were the ones trying to avoid attacks over their record on things like border security. Here's some of the back and forth between the opposition leader and the Prime Minister.
Can the Prime Minister confirm that he's decided that today's question time will continue longer than any other day in the 45th Parliament in order to prevent the House from voting on a royal commission into abuse to people living with disabilities?
Members on my left, the Prime Minister.
You run out of questions.
The member for Lawler is warned.
First time. I'm going
The Prime Minister has the call.
Well, Mr Speaker, what a declaration of surrender from the Leader of the Labor Party. When has a Leader of the Opposition ever wanted to shut down question time, Mr Speaker, when you've got a government which is happy to stand here, be questioned on our record, be questioned on our achievements, be questioned on the plans that we have for Australia? We're happy to answer questions on this all day, Mr Speaker.
Now, Matthew, there's news from the Senate too after last night's brawl between a senator and a staffer.
That's right. One Nation Chief of Staff Pauline Hanson, the leader of One Nation, her Chief of Staff James Ashby, has had his parliamentary pass revoked and is banned from the building, pending an investigation into this incident between him and the former One Nation Senator, now United Australia Party Senator Brian Burston. Last night, it seems, was quite a busy one for One Nation and their former colleagues. First, there were accusations in the press from Brian Burston that Pauline Hanson had sexually harassed him during his time in the party. Then we became aware of this report from the marble foyer of Parliament House, the main entranceway of Parliament House, that there had been a scuffle between Brian Burston and Senator Hanson's Chief of Staff, which was recorded by James Ashby, and that vision provided to commercial media networks. It is something that has occupied the minds of many people in this building today, and the President of the Senate, Scott Ryan said that he was looking into this matter, that he'd watched that vision, and that despite Parliament being something of a special place, generally there are rules about what laws apply here, or indeed what sort of police action can be taken here. He said that it is a place where the normal rules and laws of the ACT apply, and that any further investigation from the police would continue. He said in the interim, though, he would be taking away James Ashby's parliamentary pass. Here's what he had to say.
The video footage that I have reviewed records the reported incident between Senator Burston and Mr James Ashby last night. It shows inappropriate behaviour by a pass holder towards a senator. Accordingly, I have exercised my authority to revoke Mr James Ashby of his pass to access the building and prohibit him from re-entering the building for presiding officers. As I outlined earlier, this action does not in any way prejudice any other legal or other proceedings that may be undertaken or initiated by the parties involved.
That is the Senate President, Scott Ryan. Now, it must be pointed out that Brian Burston is pursuing legal options, his legal avenues with regards to this incident and more broadly the dispute about sexual harassment allegations there. To make this story even more bizarre, photographs emerged last night of blood smeared on the office door of Pauline Hanson here in Parliament House. Shortly after Scott Ryan made that statement about James Ashby, Brian Burston took to his feet.
Also, I do not recall the incident of blood on the door. I now have come to the conclusion that it was myself, and I sincerely apologise for that action.
And that is Brian Burston addressing the Senate a short time ago. Now, this is an incident which will continue to develop as we go through the coming hours and days. And need I remind you, Kirsten, it's been a very busy week here in Parliament House, and all of this has happened on just day 3 of Parliament for 2019. We will continue to bring you the updates as they come to hand.
Lauren in Canberra, thank you.